For more discussion on China's national carbon emissions trading platform, we're joined by Changhua Wu. She's the executive director of the Professional Association for China's Environment. Welcome back to the show, and thanks so much for joining us. First, talk about some of the pros and the cons of this program, and if this is a model that can be copied elsewhere.
But this is a model China learned literally from EU. EU ETS has been the first and also the most mature carbon trading platforms that have made a point, made a case. So China started to learn from EU and trying to figure out how to deploy market-based instruments to help accelerate the investment in renewable energy, phase out fossil fuels, and now particularly with the time frames of 2030 and 2060 time frame, and now literally we have a carbon budget, right? And we need to figure out how to deploy all the policy instruments and tools to deliver the goals. And in that context, carbon trading is one of the many tools that China has been trying to deploy. And so 7 years passed, and China has learned through the process, build up a capacity, and build up the infrastructure, build up the expertise, and looking into a re-examination of the regulatory policy frameworks, and managed to pull the pieces together. So this is where we are today, and the carbon market or carbon trading is now recognized officially as one of the important policy instruments to support the country to deliver its carbon neutrality.
Well, this is part of China's plan to decarbonize its economy within the next 40 years. How does this plan play into that, and how realistic is this goal of 2060, the 2060 plan?
With all the sort of elements in place, you could literally imagine, first we have a time frame, so we have 40 years. And secondly, we have this carbon neutrality goal. Literally, we have about carbon budget, the total carbon budget. So now, how do we allocate the carbon budget we have and spread out through the 4 decades? That is where we are now. I think all the efforts, from policymakers, business community, financial institutions, and society at large are trying to figure out actually how to do the allocation. So carbon market comes in, steps in that context, basically trying to use this particular tool, instrument, saying, by what time frame and, how with the allocation of the budget, and make sure things will work out, particularly taking advantage of the cost effectiveness of the carbon market and provide adequate incentives for companies to step up efforts and also mobilizing more resources, particular financial resources, to invest in alternatives and also offset there. So, the 2060 carbon neutrality sounds like a very ambitious goal. There's no doubt about it. But in the meantime, we pretty much know, what to do and how to do it. But the more specifics now on the table is to make sure step by step it's planned out and also delivered in a timely manner.
What about China's coal use? It's estimated to be about 60% of all of China's power source. How can China bring that number down, and what role does this program play in that?
If you look at the carbon market scheme now, at this stage, the power sector is the focus, and power sector accounts for about 43% of the total emissions in China, which is the largest from sector industry perspective. And secondly, coal, still accounts more than half. I think 50-ish, nearly 60% of the fuel structure there. So at this moment, the carbon trading is focused on coal-fired and gas-fired power plants. So that's the target there. In the meantime, if you not only just now, if you look at last decade or so, addressing these coal issues there, China has been repurposing, retrofitting, and retiring the existing capacities of coal-fired power plants. In the meantime, investing aggressively in alternatives, particularly renewable energies like wind and solar, now energy storage, all the other clean technologies there. And then the third piece of the puzzle actually is on the energy use side. We had to make sure we have many clean energy technologies and product services there. We need to deploy them. In the meantime, We need to electrify as much as possible buildings, transportations to help accelerate the transition. So in a nutshell, I think, yes, coal continues to be a big part of the energy structure in China now. But in the meantime, we know pretty much what to do, what's required to do so. So carbon trading steps in is more like mobilizing resources, providing more incentives to accelerate that process. I think this is pretty much where China stands today.
Changhua Wu, thank you so much for your insight, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.